Hi, I am Cesar Santos. Let's continue with part 2 of my latest vlog where I talk about the practical treatise on painting in oil colors by Thomas Bardwell. The term I'll be using in this vlog are based on this book by Thomas Bardwell, where he describes his palette and how he mixes the colors, the original tints, into mixtures of tints and shades in order to construct the flesh in a more complete and vibrant artistic way. In the description below, I will put the link to the book and also the list of colors that he uses. In my previous video, I went over the list of colors that he mentions from the white all the way to the black and some characteristics about those colors. If you missed that vlog, click here so you can understand this vlog, today's vlog, a little bit better, because I'm gonna ignore the colors, I already talked about that, and I'm gonna go right into describing the tints and the shades of his palette. Let's start by listing the tints that are necessary for painting the flesh. What is a tint? A tint is a color mixture with white to increase the lightness. So the tints are gonna be the lighter halftones of the painting. The number one tint we're gonna talk about is the light red tint. Light red tint comes from two colors, the light red color that I mentioned and white. These two colors mixed to a lighter halftone will make the general complexion for the flesh. You gotta be a little careful because if you add too much light red into the white, it will grow darker quickly and with a higher chroma that would not be suited for painting the flesh. So in order to balance that, you want to make sure that you just add a little bit of the light red and a little bit of vermilion or yellow to compensate for the increase of chroma. Vermilion tint is a mixture of vermilion and white mixed to a light middle tone. This vermilion tint agrees with the white and the yellow tint and the light red. So it's a color also that is gonna be involved within the light areas of the flesh. Carmine tint is carmine plus white mixed to a middle value. Now this color is mainly used towards the final layers of the painting. You shouldn't be using it in the first or dead coloring stages. It's a beautiful color for the cheeks and the lips. It gives you that nice fleshy pink color. Thomas Bardwell recommends to lay this color thinly on top of the other flesh colors without mixing it too much. Yellow tint is the light ochre plus white. This yellow ochre tends to be strong, so we gotta be careful when adding it to the white. Make sure you don't add too much yellow. You don't want a flesh to be too yellow, plus it will get yellower in time. The way he describes the yellow tint is where I find the problems with this book, because it doesn't describe exactly what he defines and the way he suggests to use it. For example, he says that the yellow tint should go after the light red tint and always before the blues. It's a little confusing. So the way I interpret that is that first we have the light red tint, which is the general flesh, then we add the yellow to that. That's why he means maybe the yellow goes after the light red tint. And you want to keep that chroma clean, and therefore the blues goes after when the form starts to turn. So that's what I mean by interpreting his book, because it's not clear what he meant. Blue tint is made of ultramarine blue and white mixed to a lightish blue. This blue tint mixed with yellows will make the greens, and with reds the purplish flesh. No color is more proper for softening the lights and for making those transitions towards the shadow, away from the light. We then go to lead tint. This is the mixture of ivory black, that's the black that we had on our palette, the last color, plus the white. The two extremes mixed together will make a middle tone gray, pearly color. This gray lead color is great for gradations and also for the white of the eyes. Green tint is a mixture of three colors: the Prussian blue, light ochre, that's the yellow, plus the white. These three colors mixed to a light value will give you an optional gray or cool colors for the halftones. It is of most use in the shadow areas, in the dark shadows where the colors are too strong, too red. So this green will be the one to balance out and compensate, offset that incredible warm area. Thomas Bardwell mentions the shade tint as a mixture of lake, which is the alizarin crimson that we mentioned, Indian red, black, the ivory black, and white. And a mixture of this will give us the shadows, the base for the shadows of the flesh. Even though it's using the shadows, we don't want to mix these colors to a very dark value. Okay, so make sure you add the white to keep it in the middle value. You always want to have the colors and even the shadows lighter than what they appear in nature. So when you add more layers of paint, you can increase that darkness. It mixes with the light delightfully, and it gives you a very nice clean color inclined towards a reddish pearl. This shade tint color and the light red tint, the first color that I gave you here, the first mixture, those two are the base for all the flesh colors during the first stages of painting. Now that I have covered all the tints mixtures as presented by Thomas Bardwell, I'm gonna go on and describe the shades. These are a few colors but are very specific, the way he mentions it, towards the use in the dark side, in the dark areas of the flesh. Before we talk about the shades, let's talk about what it means. A shade is a color mixture with black or with another color to reduce the lightness. So the shade is the opposite of the tint. The tint increases the lightness, is mixed with white, and the shades goes to the dark side of the flesh. The red shade is a mixture of lake plus a very little amount of Indian red. So the alizarin crimson, the permanent alizarin crimson plus Indian red. Now this color is a great base for the shadows. It's a very warm color that when it's wet, it will receive the blues and the greens very agreeable. The red shade mixed with white will give you the rose tint. The rose tint is another pinkish color that is very useful for the pinkish areas of the flesh. When Thomas Bardwell talks about the warm shade, he's mainly talking about a mixture of lake, the alizarin crimson, plus the brown pink, which is that warm yellowish brown, mixed to a middle degree. This color is great for strengthening the shadow areas of the shade tint, the shadows in the flesh. Be careful, don't mix it with the light areas of the flesh, so make sure you keep it on the shadow side. The dark shade is a mixture of ivory black and Indian red. And just by these two colors, you will know that this is a very dark, warm color of great use for the special warm accents. This will give you kind of like a warmer Van Dyke brown type of color. It mixes kindly with the red shades and sympathizes with the middle tones of the early stages. It is a charming color for the eyebrows and the darkest shadows. Actually, he calls it the most perfect shadow color. This book is a great foundation to establish a system to work from. Even though it's very specific in naming the colors and the shades, it's missing also a lot of subtle information that I'm kind of glad it does, because it keeps me evolving and questioning, and I keep adding stuff to my palette that I never did before. So when I studied, I had a palette, and then as time passed and as I learned and traveled and saw different artists working in different ways, I stole and adapted things to my palette and my system of work that is different from what I see in the book. The secret to understanding any painter's palette is to have the painter that uses it to explain how he's coordinating the colors that he's presenting and the way he's using it. If we get the Zorn palette or the Rembrandt palette or the Bouguereau palette or the Thomas Bardwell palette without the artists themselves to explain to us how they're using these colors, it's hard for us to figure it out by ourselves. So instead of following that, I'd say get your colors, something that you're comfortable with, something that someone maybe taught you, and try to develop within those colors. You can develop your own system in a way that it will function for you, and you can share it with students later on. The point is, as an artist, to keep growing, to keep questioning things, to keep reading and learning. There's not a such thing as an ignorant good painter. To be a good painter, you have to be informed of what's out there in a general sense and use those as tools for your own practice. Let's wrap this video up. The tints gets you the light. The darks are made of shades. The values are the mixtures of this in different grades.